Okay, so good morning or good evening or good middle of the night, depending where you're listening to the teachings from. We started this text by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, How to See Yourself as You Really Are, in 2012. And I was thinking to kind of get a good way through it then, but I did a few pages, so we were going to continue in 13, and then I was going to finish then. And that didn't happen, so we continued in 2014. Anyway, we're hoping this year to actually finish the text. The previous ones are all online, so you can listen to them and, hear my commentary on His Holiness, what His Holiness said in the book. And it's really quite a wonderful book. It has very profound teachings, but it's put in a very simple way. And when Jeffrey edited it, he added all these question and answer things like little reviews that can also be a meditation guideline or a reflection guideline. So they're really good to go through and think about after you hear the teachings. Okay, so just remember when we're having a teaching like this, you're getting the tip of the iceberg. And so take in everything you can, and then know that as you continue to practice, you're going to be filling in a lot of the details. You're going to go deeper in the iceberg, but I hope it'll warm your heart and not freeze it. Okay, so just have that open mind towards it. And also when you're listening at home, have a quiet space. Sit up straight. Don't be lying down unless you're ill. Don't get up in the middle. Don't, munch on whatever people munch on nowadays. Pretend that you're at an actual teaching, because you're just not in the same room, but you are at an actual live teaching. And our physical comportment makes a difference in our mental state and how we listen. Yeah, I know that for myself. If I'm sitting like that, then I'm listening like this. If I'm sitting up straight, then I listen much better. So, please keep that in mind. So in our sessions, we'll start with a couple of recitations, the refuge and precept prayer, and the four measurables, and then the Buddha's mantra. And then we'll have a few minutes of silent meditation. You can watch your breath or reflect on one of the teachings that we've heard to calm your mind down. And then I'll set a motivation, and then we'll begin the actual teaching session. Okay? So let's start with that. When we do the recitations, we're not doing them to empty space. Okay, so in the space in front of you, imagine the Buddha sitting with a body made of golden light. And he's smiling at you, or at least looking at you with a lot of affection. And he's surrounded by all the other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, all the lineage teachers. And then think that you're surrounded by all sentient beings. And we and all the sentient beings are facing the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha together. And we're leading them in taking refuge and generating bodhicitta in the presence of the holy beings. And make sure to include in your visualization of all the sentient beings the people that you have problems with and think that now these, the people that you have difficulties with or who you're angry at or you disapprove of, think that their mind has changed and now they are open and receptive to hear the Buddha's teachings. And so you're leading them in taking refuge, in generating the aspiration for full awakening. So instead of having a rigid mind, seeing some people as just horrible and distasteful, recognize that everybody can change and that you can benefit them when they're receptive. So we'll cultivate our motivation now. So come back to that thought that we had before chanting the recitation verses, that people can change and people are changing and there's no way to prevent them from changing. So especially thinking that the people you have problems with are changing and have a different outlook on life. Then let's think of all living beings and us all having the same wish in our lives to be happy and not to suffer. So even the bugs, even the politicians that we may not care for, even certain family members we have difficulty with. Everybody wants happiness. Nobody wants suffering. And yet, because our minds are overpowered by ignorance, by clinging attachment, by anger, by jealousy, by arrogance, and so on. Even though we want happiness, what we do to get happiness doesn't always work. And part of the reason is because we don't really know what the cause of happiness is. And we think it comes from external things in people, not from our internal mental state. And so wanting happiness, we are constantly grasping at things from outside, fighting with things from outside, but ignoring what's going on in our own hearts and minds. And it's really our own hearts and minds that are creating our experience. So all of us are exactly the same in this way. Nobody's any better than anybody else. We all suffer from the same afflictions, the same self-centeredness. So instead of spending our life energy, competing with others or trying to make a name for ourselves with others or being jealous of others. Let's use our time and energy to create the cause of happiness for ourselves and others. We do this by following the Buddhist teachings and by having the long-term motivation to become a fully awakened, fully wise, fully compassionate, fully skillful Buddha ourselves. To do this, we have to start out by learning the Buddhist teachings, and that's why we're here today. So let's have that be our motivation for sharing the weekend together. So I think already the group of people who have come together, either here at the Abbey or online joining us, are a special group of people because this is Memorial Day weekend, which in America is the token beginning of summer. So everybody wants to go outside, lie on the beach, bicycle, drink, barbecue. I think you're tired of watching movies, but, maybe watch a few. Yeah, talk with your friends, run around, and share your coronavirus with everybody else. Well, the last part isn't what we want to do, but it's going to be the result of doing the beginning part without having social distancing. So the fact that all of you have chosen this weekend not to do all of that, but instead to work with your mind and really learn some skills that will help you in your life and that will benefit others, I think that's really wonderful. And I was especially pleased to hear that there were 119 people who came for morning meditation online. Why aren't they all here at the teachings? Yeah, more people signed up for the meditation than they did for the teachings. Oh, well, any Dharma is good. So I wanted to start this first session kind of filling in, some things, because some of you have been here for all 8 preceding years, and some of you are new to the Dharma. So I wanted to go over some things that are very essential for the Buddhist worldview. And some of you may have heard these before, but my experience is we forget them. Or we know the words, but it's out of our mind when we live our daily life. Okay? So I think it's helpful to go over these things for the sake of everybody, whether it's your first time or you've been here many times. So the first part is that our mind is what creates our experience. And this is a fundamental thing in Buddhism. And it's totally the opposite of the way the world sees things. And it's the opposite, pretty much, of how we've been brought up in our families and in society, because we're taught that happiness comes from having external things, being in relationships with certain people, having certain status that comes from being in groups and working and so on with other people. And we're also taught that our suffering comes because we're contacting people who bother us, or material things that bother us, or policies that we don't like. So our whole outlook on life is that happiness and suffering comes from outside of us. Yeah. And then we live our life constantly trying to control the environment and make it change so that it will become what we want it to be. And we've been doing this from beginningless time. Is this correct? Can you see this in your lives? Yeah. You know, from getting up in the morning. Yeah. What gets us out of, well, first thing, the alarm clock. Oh, I don't like that sound. Get rid of it. Okay. So suffering from outside, get rid of it. Then, oh, but I can have a hot cup of coffee or a hot cup of tea. Something external. Now I'll get out of bed. You know, a whole day, everything is governed by our relationship with external objects and people. You know, our five senses, you know, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, are always engaged, always seeking something from externally. Yeah. And so we're always trying to change other people, change the world. We know how the world should be. We know how other people should act, what they should say, what they shouldn't say, and we give them lots of advice on how to improve so that we can be happy. Okay? So it starts, you know, just with the people we live with. We have advice for what they should do and shouldn't do, and what they should say and shouldn't say. Right? Yeah? You have some advice? Yeah? And then we try and sometimes share our advice with everybody else. And these people look at us and they say, what are you talking about? You're telling me how to change? This is the pot calling the kettle black. You know, go get lost. Why should I change to become what you want me to be? I didn't ask for your advice. Get out of here. And that's when they're being polite. When they're not being polite, well, they may make the point in a few other ways, giving us gifts that they toss in our direction, you know, screaming at the top of their voices in case we have short-term memory loss or we're hard of hearing. But of course, we do that to them when they give us their advice about how we should change so that they can be happy. And we don't want to hear their advice. And they don't want to hear our advice. And so we get mad at each other. Mm-hmm. So, you know, this thing of always searching outside isn't really bringing what we want. Now you're going to say, but. Sometimes I get what I want. And when I get what I want from outside, it makes me really happy. Okay, so what do you get? Well, first thing, chocolate. Or whatever kind of food you want. Maybe it's pizza, maybe it's garbanzo beans. Yeah, whatever it is, you get the food you want. Oh, I feel so happy. How long does that happiness last? Yeah. Yeah. Doesn't last very long. Then you have to clean up from cooking. You have to wash the dishes. And if you eat too much, then you have a stomach ache. So you think, okay, well, some happiness from food, but not all happiness. But I met the most wonderful person. Buddha boy showed up and he's just fantastic. Or Buddha girl showed up and she's wonderful. And this person just fulfills all my needs. And I'm in seventh heaven. And, this is wonderful. I'm in love. And how long does that last? Yeah. Huh? 3 months. Okay. 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Yeah. I think it's more like 3 minutes, And then, of course, you fight, don't you? Yeah. Because that person doesn't do everything you want them to do when you want them to do it. And you want them to meet all your needs. Yeah. I mean, that's part of the job description if you're going to be my partner, is you have to meet all my needs. And you have to meet them without me telling you what they are. And whatever mood I'm in, you have to be in a complimentary mood. Again, without me telling you how I feel, you should just adjust. So if I want to joke around, you should want to joke around. That's not the time for you to be unhappy or serious. If I want to be serious, you need to be serious at that time. Forget joking. Okay? When I'm discouraged, your job is to support me and tell me how wonderful I am and how bad that person or structural institute is that harm me. That structure in society. Your job is to support me and agree with me. Yeah. And in that way, you earn my love. Okay. Lama Yeshe once said, when you say I love you, what you really mean is I want to use you. My goodness, I said that the first Dharma talk. You're all going to hang up now. But think about it. So we're always grasping externally, yeah, and are totally unable to control the rest of the world. We keep trying to control the rest of the world. Yeah, we have protests in front of the state capitol. We file court cases. Yeah, we sign petitions. We scream and yell and cry and swear and get angry. And sometimes we can change some things. I think it's good we try and change things in society that don't function well. But what we never do is look at what's going on inside here and how I'm creating the situation, how I'm participating in what happens. And so we make ourselves into a victim because if happiness and suffering exist outside, then I'm either the recipient of goodness or I'm the victim of other people or structures in society. Okay? And then we're never at peace with our environment. We're never at peace inside. Okay? So I'm not saying do nothing. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying look at how we create our experience through how we think and how we act. because our thoughts, our moods, our interpretations of events create how we experience those events. Mm-hmm. So one of you who is listening today, excuse me if I tell a story that you told us that illustrates this point very well. So one of our friends, her son was engaged, and the fiance's family lived in another city. And they were having a big party, an engagement party. And our friend went down to participate in the engagement party. Of course, she didn't know anybody. She had met the fiance once or twice. She didn't know any of the family. She walked into the party, which was in one of the family's homes. And the fiance was talking to somebody. And when our friend walked in, the fiance just completely ignored her, kept on talking, didn't come and greet her. Her future mother-in-law, the one who raised the man that she was going to marry, completely ignored her. Yeah. And she didn't know anybody. She felt so out of place. This fiance is so rude, so, horrible. Why in the world is my son marrying this woman? She thought. Yeah. And she's completely upset by the whole thing. So she told us what happened, And then we were practicing nonviolent communication. And one of the steps in nonviolent communication is to, instead of describing things with emotionally laden words and with words that attribute motivations and characteristics to people, like, she's so rude, she ignored me, she doesn't care about me, how can she marry somebody, as wonderful as my son? And, so to just describe the situation without all those kinds of words. And so when she did, what's just the facts of, I opened the door, I walked in, the fiancé was speaking to somebody, she continues speaking to him. That's all that happened. That's all that happened. Yeah. Where did she's so rude, she doesn't care about me, she's going to take me for advantage of me. Where did all of that come from? Came from her own mind, didn't it? Yeah. So all the time we are engaging with the external world, but we're not just seeing what there is. We're adding a whole overlay. So the first part of the overlay is things exist out there independent of my mind, independent of everything else. And I am an independent person, not dependent on anything else either. That's the big overlay, the super problem one. Then, based on that one, we start interpreting things, and we attribute motivations to people. And sometimes we even psychoanalyze them. How many of you are amateur psychologists? We look at somebody, that person's, borderline. Yeah, that's why they say one thing one day and one thing another one. And that person is, help me with... Yeah, obsessive compulsive. Yeah. And what? Narcissistic. Oh, yes, definitely narcissistic. I'm not narcissistic, but that person, narcissistic. Yeah, bipolar. They're always changing their mind. They're totally unpredictable.
Oppositional defiant.
Oh, oppositional defiant. Yes, you can't be a regular kid anymore. You suffer from oppositional defiant disorder. Okay. ADD, yeah, can't sit still, can't keep their mouth closed, always talking. Yeah, so they suffer from ADD. So everybody, we can psychoanalyze, and this came from this and that, and we know all everybody else's psychological condition, but we don't know our own, and we're projecting others' psychological condition and attributing motivations to them. I knew that he said that because he wanted to embarrass me in front of everybody else. I knew they said that because they're being condescending and they think I'm not worthwhile to be here. Yeah, I knew that they acted that way because they're trying to manipulate me to give them something. Yeah. So we're always attributing motivations to people. We're attributing meanings to actions. And we think that all of that exists out there and that what we are perceiving is reality. Yeah, total reality. And so we get attached to some things that look wonderful. We have aversion to other things that, that seem to get in our way. And then all this jostling with the external world begins or continues. And we feel like a victim. But we're looking at everything that is not me, everything that I have no control over. The one thing that I can change and manage is inside here, my own heart, my own mind. And we totally don't look at it. No wonder we're confused. No wonder we have problems. Yeah. When we change our mind, we change our experience of everything. Mm-hmm. And only we can change our mind. We can't hire somebody else to do it. We can't legislate it. We can't connive to make it happen. The only way it happens is by learning the teachings, using them as a mirror to understand ourselves, and then practicing the various meditations to change our way of looking at things. Yeah? When we change our way of looking at things, when we change our emotional reactions to things, then our whole experience changes. And when we change, then whoever we are relating to also has to change. Okay, so in families, very often people play off each other. Everybody has an identity, and every family dinner is kind of a repeat of the previous one. Yeah, because everybody plays their role. One person bosses around, the sister and the brother always fight. The parents are controlling. Then you have the defiant one. Then you have the good kid. Everybody plays a role. Yeah, but as soon as we change, then everything, the whole dynamic has to change. The same thing in your place of work. Yeah, you play a role. If you go in and you act differently, your boss is going to have to change. Your colleagues are going to change. Mm-hmm. At first, they won't. They're kind of shocked because they're used to acting in the same way towards you. Yeah, but when you, instead of scowling at them every day, when you start smiling, then they have to change. Okay, so what the Buddha Dharma is doing is calling our attention to this and then giving us ways to change our habitual things. Because, how can we change? Because what makes it possible to change is that we are conditioned phenomena to start with. We feel like we're independent people with our own personality that has always been that way, and our own likes and dislikes and our own way of acting. And I am a shy person, I am a joyful person, I'm an angry person, I'm a, go-getter person. We think that we have these traits that are permanently who we are, that don't depend on anything else. And so then we keep playing out this image we have of ourselves, which is something that is actually conditioned, created by many other factors. We are not one solid, concrete person with a permanent identity, or a predictable personality. Everything we contact is conditioning us, and we are conditioning everything and everyone we contact too. So there's this continual process of change that's going on, but we see ourselves as fixed. We see other people as fixed, and it's not like that. Okay. Yes, people have habits, and some people, it's difficult for them to change their habits. And we have to let them be, because our nagging them and pestering them is not going to change their habits. But our habits can all be changed. I don't care how deeply ingrained they are, because we're the only one who can change our habits. And if we apply more conditioning to our, the kind of conditioning we need, then we will be able to change our habits, and we'll be able to change our attitudes and the way we interpret different things, and then everything changes. Okay. So far I've been talking about this life. Kind of sounds like a self-help course. Okay? And Buddhism is not designed just to reduce our anger a little bit so we can be happier in this life. Buddhism is designed to get rid of our anger entirely so that we can become a fully awakened being. Okay? The kind of change Buddhism envisions for us, the full scope of the change, I should say, because everybody can change as much as they want to, and people have different aspirations and different aims, okay? But what the Buddha really has in mind, the long-term view, is that we become fully awakened Buddhas. So what's a Buddha? A Buddha is not a statue. And especially not one of the statues you see at restaurants with a big belly that everybody goes and rubs. Okay, we're not trying to become a statue. We're not trying to become a bump on a log who says, I have no attachment and I have no anger, so I just don't care about anything. No, that's not enlightenment. That's stupidity. But what the Buddha is saying is we have a human potential that is totally amazing that we're unaware of. That our mind, by its, the definition of mind is that which is clear and cognizant. So it's clear, it's formless, it can reflect objects, it's cognizant because it can know and understand and engage. Okay? So that fundamental nature of the mind is not polluted. The ignorance clinging attachment, anger, and so on, all those afflicted mental states are laid on top of it, but they're not the nature of the mind. Okay? The nature of the mind is like the clear open sky. Today it's cloudy here. I don't know how it is where you are, but we have a layer of clouds over us. We can't see the clear sky, but the clear sky has not disappeared. It's still there. It's just being temporarily obscured, and the clouds can be removed. So what we're trying to do in our spiritual practice is remove the clouds that cover our mind. As we remove these clouds that cover our mind, we become free of the various afflicting emotions, the disturbing emotions, the wrong views, and so on, that interfere with our well-being. And as we practice certain Dharma techniques, we learn how to cultivate equanimity and joy and love and compassion and wisdom and generosity and friendliness and so on. Okay, so we have the seeds of a lot of good qualities in us right now, and with Buddhist practice, we water those seeds. We make them sprout and make them grow. And, in that way, we are reconditioning ourselves. So the thing is, we have old habits, many of which, were inculcated in us when we were little, some of which came from previous lives, but none of them are permanent and fixed. Okay? So in that way, there's incredible openness and opportunity in our life if we are aware of it and if we take advantage of it. Okay? And that's the real beauty of the Buddha's teachings. Not only that they point out that opportunity to us, but they tell us exactly how to overcome the bad habits that we want to be free of. Yeah, the afflicting emotions that interfere. They give us specific methods for how to cultivate our good qualities. And if we actually engage in those methods, then because cause and effect works, and we're reconditioning ourselves, then those good qualities can develop. Okay? They aren't going to develop if we just learn them and then pray to the Buddha to have them. Buddha, please may I generate impartial love and compassion for all sentient beings. Please, Buddha, please make that happen to me. Bless my mind. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go have something to eat. No. Okay, it doesn't work like that. Okay? We're the ones who have to practice the techniques and recondition our mind. Okay? So I always say this is really the beauty of being an adult now. Because when we were kids, we received a lot of conditioning. We didn't even recognize it as conditioning. We didn't have the mental tools to discriminate if what we were being taught was accurate or inaccurate, whether it was true or false, beneficial or not beneficial. We didn't know. We were kids, we just took it all in. Now, as adults, we can look at the conditioning we've had and realize that it's not who we are. And because we have adult wisdom, now we can look back and reflect, what did I learn? Not just from what people told me, but from experiences I had, things that I observed when I was little. What did I learn that serves me now, that I want to develop? What good qualities did I get? Were planted in my mind and good ideas that I want to increase. And what habits and ways of looking at things that did I learn when I was little that don't serve me now, that are unrealistic, that don't work. Okay. So, for example, in many families, people quarrel. Well, most families, people quarrel. Yeah. So then, as little kids, we observe how the adults around us settle differences. So one person yells and screams, calls the other person names, maybe throws something. Yeah. The other person cries. Another person walks out, slams the door, and doesn't talk to anybody. Okay. So as little kids, we're watching, and we see people disagree, and then, okay, look what these adults are doing around us. And as little kids, we think adults are smart, and know things. And so, oh, well, this must be when you have a quarrel, this must be, or you have a difference of opinions, this must be how you act. And so we copy what we see around us from the adults around us. Or sometimes we see the adults acting in one way and we say, that's horrible, I'm not going to do it that way. And we learn from it. Okay. But sometimes we say, that's horrible, and we do the same thing. Yeah. Because we're kids and we just take it all in. Now we're at a point in our lives where we can step back and look. And what did I learn that was valuable? And what did I learn that wasn't valuable? Okay. And then set about creating the causes of happiness, because we see the causes of happiness come from inside, and abandoning the causes of suffering, because again, we see that suffering comes from inside. Okay? So this is really what Dharma practice is about. It's not about the robes, the haircut, or having your mala, your prayer beads, or looking very holy. Yeah, can I do it? No, I'm not doing it very well.
That's better. That's better.
Yeah. Or, there's two ways of looking holy, this way and this way. Yeah, what?
Catholic and Buddhist.
Yeah, Catholic and Buddhist. And I'm not very good at either of them, Yeah. So it's not about that. It's about working with what's in here. Okay? So as we work with what's in here, okay, it affects us in two ways. And these two ways are also how our normal, responses and emotions and attitudes and so on affect us. One is based on our attitude, our present attitude, we create our present experience. So that happens, okay? You can see, if you go in a room where you don't know anybody and you're anxious and you think, oh, all those people know each other and I'm left out and, they're not going to like me and I'm different from them and I won't be accepted. If you have that mind before you even walked in the room and met anybody, let's say you go to a conference at work or, a party or something. If you have that attitude, then pretty much you're going to be a wallflower and you're going to feel lonely and alienated from the people. Because you went in there with that mental state of they all know each other and they're happy and I'm not going to fit in and nobody's going to talk to me. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you go in with the attitude of, gee, there's a lot of people there that I don't know. I bet they've had really interesting life experiences. I'm going to go and initiate conversations with different people and learn from them. if you go in with that kind of attitude and motivation, then you're going to have a really good time in a room full of strangers. Okay? So, yeah, one thing is how our mind affects our present experience. Yeah, depending on, how we interpret events and so on. It's kind of like, we've all had the experience of waking up in the morning, as they say, on the wrong side of the bed, and you're in a bad mood, and nothing's happened, but you're in a bad mood. Had that experience? Come on, we know you have. And have you ever noticed the day that when you're in a bad mood, you meet so many obnoxious people? Yeah, just that day when you're in a bad mood and you really need some kindness and you don't want any problems, all those quarrelsome people show up and bug you, and they're on your case about everything. Have you noticed that? They all show up that day. Okay. When you're in a good mood and you're cheerful and you can handle people giving you feedback that you don't like so much, those people aren't around. People seem really rather congenial. Why is that? Why is that? How come they all show up when I'm in a bad mood and everybody is really nice when I'm in a good mood? Is it really coming from outside or is it coming from inside? Yeah? When we're in a bad mood, I don't know about you, but when I'm in a bad mood, almost everything everybody does is wrong and inconsiderate and selfish. Yeah. And they're just not being nice to me and they're not listening and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And the days when I'm in a good mood, everybody's so kind, and their speech is really nice and they give me suggestions about how to do something differently that really will help me. It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah. I think all of you plot that. Yeah. Oh, we can see she's in a bad mood today. Let's go get her. Yeah. She put that spatula in the office instead of the kitchen. Yeah. Okay, so that's one way how our mind influences our experience. The other way our mind influences our experience is through what we call karma. And karma simply means action. It's nothing magical. It's nothing mystical. Don't listen to Time magazine when it talks about karma, okay? Because as soon as Time and Newsweek use the word karma, we're wondering what other people, if any people have the idea of what it really is. So it just means volitional action, actions that we've motivated, okay? They can be physical actions, verbal actions to communicate, or mental actions, the kind of things we plan and develop in our mind. Okay, these actions are very dependent on our motivation and, of course, on how we complete them and what we do and so on. But when an action is complete, it leaves what we call a karmic seed on our mind stream. And these karmic seeds, come from actions that may be virtuous, for example, if we were kind, or non-virtuous, for example, if we were trying to manipulate somebody. And, it's kind of I don't know, how do you describe a karmic seed? It's a potential to bring a result that arose from previous action, from previous energy. Okay? So we have these potentials, these seeds on our mind stream, and then they will ripen when certain external conditions come about, or internal conditions, anything that's a cooperative condition. When they arise, these seeds will ripen. They will determine where we're reborn, what kind of realm, what kind of body we're reborn in. They will influence what we experience in our future lives. They will influence our habitual actions in our future lives. They will influence our being in certain environments or living in certain environments. Okay, so a lot of what we're experiencing now is dependent on our previous actions. At the same time, we're experiencing the results of previous actions through our body, speech, and mind. We are creating the causes that leave new karmic seeds on our mind stream that will influence our future situations. So experiencing now the result of causes that we created in the past, and at the same time, depending on how we relate to the experiences we have now, we're creating more seeds for what we will experience in the future. Okay, so this again is showing that our experience, both of these things, how we react in the present time and then through karma, these things show how our mind is creating our experience and how we have the potential to change what our experience is by changing our actions, by changing our mind and our heart. Okay, so it's on this basis that the rest of the teachings that we're going to be going through in how to see yourself as you really are based. And we'll be starting on page 201. That will go over a little bit of what we did last year and then go into the new part. So, questions or comments if people have them. This is a good time to ask.
Claudia online asks, what would be the difference, if any, between entering a room full of strangers looking forward to meeting new people and the self-centered desire to be liked and to fit in? Is it our intention?
So going into a room with the intention to meet new people, you can do it with different motivations. Is that what?
She said, what's the difference between entering a room full of people looking forward to meeting them?
Okay.
And then the self-centered desire to be liked and to fit in.
Okay.
What's the difference there?
Okay, there's a big difference, isn't there? Okay. When you walk into a room and you're curious, what are these people like and how can we connect? You really care about the other people. Yeah, and you want to meet them and you want to learn from them. When you are going into the room and it's like, I want everybody to like me, they have to like me, so let's see, this person looks like this, I better act this way because I think they think I should act this way. So I better act the way I think they think I should act so then they'll like me. That's really different, isn't it? Yeah. One way is you're sincerely interested in other people. The other way is you want to, win a popularity contest and you're putting on a face, you're creating an image and an attempt that people like you. So it's not very sincere. It's not very forthright, is it? Yeah. So people, they want to, when you meet somebody that this is what goes on in dating apps, from what I understand. You create a profile, so here's who I am. And then, you go out with somebody and you've read their profile, so you know what they like. And it's like, okay, I better talk about this because they like that and I want them to like me. And you're not yourself, and you're doing some phony baloney something, out of your own insecurity and wish to have somebody like you. But if somebody likes you because you've put on a good act, do they really like you? No. And if somebody likes you because of the way you look, or what you do with them, all this kind of stuff, do they really like you? No, they just like the image. Yeah. So people often ask, especially when I go to high schools to talk, why do you cut your hair off? There's a lady with no hair. What's going on with her? Who's going to like her? Because everybody, men and women, it's not just the women, it's the men too. Our hair and how we style our hair sends a signal, and it creates an image, and it makes us attractive, or it makes us unattractive, or it tells a lot about what we think about the world. Boris Johnson's hair tells you something. Yeah. Donnie's hair tells you something. Yeah. Why did she cut it off? Who's going to like a woman with no hair? Well, that's exactly the point, is I don't want anybody to like me because of my hair. Yeah. I want people to like me because of what's inside here. And so rather than spend my time futzing with my hair, I want to spend my time developing what's in here, because that's going to be much more worthwhile. Okay? So that hopefully clarifies that question. Yeah? Another one?
So Karen asks, so changing is hard, even after understanding that the happiness isn't outside. All the pressure is inside of us. Any advice?
So that what kind of pressure?
That the happiness exists outside of us.
Oh, so just the mind keeping and telling. Yeah, I know it doesn't exist outside, but I still want all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah, I still want the perfect job. I want the perfect relationship. I want the perfect sex life. I want the perfect food. I want a second home. I want a yacht. I want good sports equipment. I want. And I know none of it's going to give me happiness. None of it's going to give me happiness. But I want it anyway, and what's wrong with it? Yeah. Yeah. So what's wrong with it? What's wrong? I get new water skis. What are you telling me? Something's wrong with it. Nobody's telling you anything's wrong with it. Get your new water skis if you want, but just check up if they make you happy. Yeah. So, look as you go through, and don't say to yourself, okay, oh, I know these things aren't going to bring me happiness, and I'm trying to be a good Buddhist, and to be a good Buddhist, I can't have craving, so I really want this, but I'm going to be a good Buddhist. No, please, relax. Okay, that's not being a good Buddhist. Yeah. The idea is to look at your own experience. You want yourself to be happy and not suffer. Examine your own experience and ask if it's really bringing you the happiness you desire, or if it makes you happy for a short time, but eventually it crashes. ask yourself, would changing my mind make me happier than getting all this stuff? So what we want is for people to change because they've used their wisdom to examine the situation, not because they heard somebody say something and they're believing that person and then they're pressuring themselves to do something different, to meet somebody else's expectation or to meet their own expectation of how they should be a good Buddhist or a good whatever. Okay? So the whole thing is in Dharma practice is to reflect on our own experience with our wisdom. Yeah? And when we use our wisdom, then we can make good decisions. And this is why we listen to teachings as much as we possibly can, because the teachings will point things out to us about our ignorance and about our wisdom, so that we can identify the difference in our own mind between ignorance and wisdom. Yeah. And so that we can learn how to identify in our own mind what is the cause of happiness and what is the cause of suffering. Okay? So it's not a thing of like pressuring yourself. Oh, here's some new thing I have to become, a good Buddhist. Because that's not going to work.
She clarified that she meant she feels a lot of pressure because it's only her that can change her mind.
Yeah.
Which I think you just answered that.
Right. But that's the beauty, too. Only you can change your mind. You can do it.
She says, thank you.
Yeah.
Some more questions.
Uh-huh.
Lisa asks, to what extent does karma prevent us from awakening? I ask because I hope that karma works to prepare us to awaken. But if it provides blocks, then this is going to be a long time awakening.
Okay. So karma just means action. Whether the action is virtuous or non-virtuous depends on our mind. Virtuous karma, facilitates awakening. Non-virtuous karma creates more suffering and sets us back. Okay? So it's not just karma, it's what kind of karma. It's like food. Some food will nourish you and some food will make you sick. So you gotta look at the food and, know yourself well and then see what you need to do.
Gail asks, if someone is closer to the end of their days than the beginning, what practices or study would they best focus on?
So somebody is...
closer to the end of their days than the beginning, so close to dying.
Okay. Love and compassion. Yeah? Yeah, forgiveness. Some of these things that all the religions share. Yeah, how to wish other people well. And when I say love, I don't mean romantic love. I don't mean clinging attachment. Love in Buddhism simply means wanting somebody to have happiness in its causes. Yeah. Compassion is wanting them to be free of misery and its causes. Simple definitions, very difficult to work with our mind, to get our mind to want that. Towards our friends, it's easy to have love. Towards the people we don't like, it's very difficult. Okay, so the challenge isn't just loving the people we already love, wanting the people we're attached to be happy. It's really expanding our mind. First to strangers, wanting them to be happy and have happiness and its causes and be free of suffering and its causes. And then even to expand it to the people who harm us, who threaten us, who beat us up, who have abused us, who we disapprove of, who we think are the biggest creeps in the world. Yeah, the real challenge is with those people. And when we can open our hearts to those people, something quite wonderful happens in our hearts. I wrote an article for, who was it? One of the Buddhist magazines just recently asked me to write a short article about the 7-point cause and effect instruction to generate bodhicitta. So I was talking about equanimity, and I said, we have to learn to open our hearts to everybody equally and to forgive people for, the harms that they've done, knowing that they want to be happy and they don't know the correct method to be happy. And the editor, they sent me back the edited version yesterday or the day before. And they said, they changed at the beginning of this sentence, as long as the person has not abused you, cultivate love and forgiveness and da-da-da-da-da. And it was like, I crossed that out, because that's the real hard work. And that's really what changes us. Yeah? When we can stop having such a concrete idea of somebody else and, have a kind attitude towards them and to wish them well. And to apply that same kind attitude towards ourselves and forgive ourselves as well. Yeah.
In the edit, it's something that I've had to work with over my whole life, is that forgiving somebody and showing love and compassion doesn't mean that you're okaying and letting and condoning. I had to really learn how to separate my forgiveness, letting go of the past, without giving them a free pass on something that was very, very destructive.
Right.
And that's what it sounds like they were trying to edit in to clarify. They didn't want to see that they were two separate things, maybe.
Yeah. Or, maybe there was, anyway, I'm not going to read the editor's mind. But the thing is, forgiving does not mean you're condoning the other person's action. It does not mean what they did was okay. What they did was not okay. But what forgiving is I'm tired of being angry and upset about it. And I'm putting that down.
I know I shared that before, but I think it's very important. For me, what really helps me is to think that I have been forgiven many times in my life that I remember. Did I appreciate that? Am I a jerk always? No, I have made a mistake, and I can see that I have made mistakes. I'm not proud of it, but I can see the difference. So thinking that other people have forgiven me because they know that I can change, and I'm not repeating the same thing always. Like you said, I'm not solidly jerk. I can change. So if I can do that myself, I know that others can do it.
Right.
Because I know in my heart what's going on. So that helps me to say, hey, that was their moment, like you had your moments many, many times, girl. So now that's their moments. What you going to do with that? Solidify them or open your heart like you would like that others do to you?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't really need to wake up at 5:30 in the morning and sit and meditate several times a day to generate loving kindness towards people that I like and being kind to me. I don't need to do that. That doesn't require much effort. But the real measure of the practice is to be able to do the same for people whom we perceived as abusing us or having treated us harshly or harmfully. Now that's the real spiritual work.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's just normal life.
Yeah. Yeah. They always advise, start with, when you're generating love and compassion, start Well, with love, they say start with somebody who you respect, not somebody you're attached to. Okay, but somebody you respect and have a positive feeling for and wish them, well. Then go to strangers. Then, go to people that you have difficulty with. But don't, they usually say start, with something that's not the people you're attached to, but also not the people it's going to be most difficult with. But I find, personally speaking, for me, if I start with the difficult people, that's when I really have to work and make change. Yeah. But, the tradition says start with what's easier and then work up. So it depends on you as a person. For some people, it's too difficult to start with the people that have mistreated them. Yeah. So then start with somebody, not the people we're attached to, like you said, but, somebody we respect or something like that. Yeah. Because that, and then eventually work yourself up to that. Yeah. And when you have done that and learned to loosen the anger and the victimhood, how do you feel? Do you feel different? Yeah. It's very freeing, isn't it?
And Nick asks, how do you keep a positive mind state when someone or something is really triggering you? What practices do you suggest to stay equanimous in this troubling time when people are on edge so much without just bypassing the troubling emotion?
Okay, so doing this depends on having a regular daily practice and becoming familiar with new ways of looking at things in your daily practice over a period of time. It's very difficult to do just on the spur of the moment if you haven't practiced beforehand. It's like, going for your driving test when you haven't even been to driver's training and you don't know the difference between reverse and forward in the gear shift. On the spur of the moment, very difficult. So that's why we need a regular practice and why we need regular teachings, to really enforce this in our mind again and again and again. Okay? And even, after you've practiced for a while, you get in certain situations and your buttons get pushed, and everything you've been meditating on is out the window and you are raging, at least inside. Well, if you're raging inside but it's not coming out of your mouth or your fist, you're making progress. Give yourself a pat on the back. At least it's not being dumped on somebody else. And then go home and do some practice and calm yourself down. Yeah. So this is really, when they say practice means you do something again and again. Yeah. One thing that can be helpful when you're, many people say when you're in the situation, yeah, then the thing is you have to catch it when your feelings, when they're small. And so to do that, you have to be aware of what ticks you off. What are your buttons? What are the things that people do that even they haven't done it yet, but you can see it coming, that you already get upset about? Okay, so we have to know those things about ourselves so we can protect ourselves, protect our mind from just acting out in the habitual ways we do with disturbing emotions. Yeah. So some people say, well, just stop and, breathe and come back to your breath and like that. So that's good. For some people, that works. Okay. For some people, it doesn't work so well. Yeah. I'm one of those people. What works for me is to say to myself, this is just an appearance to my mind. Yeah, this is just, it's an appearance to my mind. It's this play of different factors. I don't need to be so reactive to it right now. And I find that helps me. But that's the beauty about the Buddha's teachings. There's many different methods. So you have to see what works for you and practice many different methods, because some things will work for you in some situations, and other techniques will work for you in other situations.